Aquaba, and welcome to AfterWords, where we discuss and reflect on the weekly message brought to us by the shrines of the Black Madonna. The presenter for today, Sunday, August 27th, 2023, is the distinguished Reverend Dr. Jawanza Eric Clark, Africa for the Africans. And now, today's moderator, Brother Zadier Ekundayo.
Good morning, brothers and sisters. Today we will be reflecting on the sermon from today's presentation. And I am Zadier. I am calling in from Denver. And I would like the other panelists to introduce themselves at this time.
Greetings. I am Mwalimu Olatunji. I'm a minister in the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church in Atlanta, Georgia.
Greetings. My name is Lorraine Harry, and I am in Atlanta, Georgia at this time.
Right on. I would love for us to begin our reflection thinking about what most stood out for you about today's presentation. What things sort of made you gasp or wonder aloud? What was most interesting? What things stood out for you? Mwalimu Olatunji?
Well, first of all, Reverend Dr. Jawanza Clark is another master teacher in the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church community. And he is always on point. The sermon that he shared with us today was very relevant as it relates to our embryonic connection to the earth and to our oppressed condition as a people. Almost everything that everything that he shared with us was very poignant and on point to me. And it was good to see him, to hear him again.
Lorraine, what stood out for you about today's presentation?
I've always felt the connection to the earth. I always admire the trees and the sky, that green, deep green on the leaves, and the blue of the sky when I'm traveling on the road. So I believe that connection does affect us daily, and that it should be respected.
Ashe, I hear you. What stood out for me as well was his mentioning the mess that the Europeans, their scramble for this planet has created worldwide, and how everything, certainly the earth, but including humans, have been turned into commodities. And when I think of humans turned into commodities, I think, of course, of our experience with the European on the continent and here. That's part of what stood out for me. What questions, if you had the opportunity to invite Reverend Dr. Jawanza to speak further about, what questions would you invite him to talk about? Mwalimu Olatunji?
Well, I think he covered the topic very well. Few people really understand the connection that people have to the land from an Afrocentric cultural perspective. To share with us information about how capitalism not only destroyed people and nations, but also destroyed the land. The data and the statistics that he pointed out could be shared over and over again to wake people up to that reality.
Sister Lorraine?
I would like to know more about the land that I don't know if it's the Beulah farm, and how we can acquire more, I guess, and how we can, utilize the land without the chemicals and without, how we could build that ecological system to our advantage.
Yes, I love that. I think I would invite the Reverend Dr. Jawanza to talk about the current scramble for the moon, for the dark side of the moon. Of course, this week, the Indian government, the Indian people, in some ways, landed on the dark side of the moon. I don't think it was a manned or a human spacecraft, but I think it was a feat that previously we heard that the Russian state had failed at landing someone on the moon. So just in the last couple of weeks, we have seen two countries attempt in a very short period of time to go to the moon. I'm reminded of the scramble for Africa. So I wonder what kind of guide we might use to understand the scramble for the moon and why the world powers seem to be in a new scramble for the moon. The other thing, and maybe we could each have a round thinking about this, is I'm thinking about, as you mentioned, Lorraine, my relationship to the land now, where I am. When I think of that, I think about how in Denver, I have purchased 3 homes now. I'm in my 3rd home. It's my forever home. I love it. I have a little plot out front, but really it belongs to the city. I'm not sure about how I can sort of live out the idea of reclaiming the land and reclaiming indigenous understanding of the land here where I am. What is your relationship to the land where you are, Mwalimu Olatunji?
Well, one thing that we understand as a community that is built on self-determination, that we cannot be free as a people until we are connected to the land. And the Beulah Land Farm Project for us is just one step in that direction, realizing that in order to solve many of the issues that we must address in today's reality, land is very important. In our communities, we have food deserts. If you don't have access to food, then starvation, ill health is going to be your reality. So starting to reacquire the skills as the first people to interact with the land. We were the first agriculturalists. We taught the world how to interact with the land, that we and the land was one, that we were caretakers of the land that produced everything that we needed. We got to get back to that reality. In many situations, folks can't even grow a tomato. If you don't have the land, you can get a pot of dirt and grow some food. As an individual family, a number of families coming together to do the same thing creates a community that can then barter and share the needed resources that he talked about in his presentation. So that's very important. And for me, I've kind of turned into a little farmer in my own little piece of dirt around my house. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to see what God can do from a little seed that's so small that can then produce fruit and vegetables that you can take right to your table and not have to worry about the contamination of outside sources.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Ms. Lorraine, do you have a connection to the land where you are somehow?
Yes, I'm like you. I only have a little piece in the front and the back of my home, but I'm getting frustrated with this Georgia red clay. No matter how many bags of, dirt or earth that I buy from the those big box stores and put in to try to mix the clay so I could grow something, it really is frustrating. The other problem I have is the seeds that we buy from these stores, once they're genetically, engineered, that once you get the fruit, the tomato or whatever, you cannot use the seed to regrow. It's like you have to go keep buying, because it will not produce the same fruit. If you plant the seed, it doesn't come out to that what you want, because it's been genetically engineered. So I'm really disgusted with it, and really want to learn how to go back to basics, so that when you get a fruit, you get the seed, you can plant that seed and keep going without having to spend the money on the big box stores again. So I'm kind of frustrated about that situation.
Yes, I hear you. I think I'm inspired by today's presentation to actually grow something outside the land I do have in terms of individual ownership. Put some pots out on the concrete in front of my house, actually put something in the raised bed I have, and maybe through that I might be transformed and use it as an opportunity to discover, along with Google, some indigenous practices that might help my own body heal. I love that. I am inspired to do that. Let's check on that. Invite me to ask about that another time.
Okay.
In terms of the sermon again, when the Reverend Dr. Jawanza mentioned the fires in Canada and the fire in Hawaii, or fires in Hawaii, what did that, and you are in Atlanta, Lorraine, where are you, Umwalimu Olatunji?
Atlanta. Yeah.
You're in Atlanta as well. What are you two seeing in terms of the earth the earth is bloodshed follows bloodshed, and the earth is needing redemption or reclamation? What's been the weather or climate patterns you're seeing in Atlanta?
Well, right now, we are experiencing a heat wave. We're in the 100-degree level right now for the last 2-3 days. And that's one thing that is a current reality for us. Also, in many parts of Atlanta, especially in the Black communities, we have food deserts where the grocery stores, the big grocery stores have decided that they're not making enough money to stay in the Black community. And so you literally have to travel to go outside of your community in order to get food for your family. So that's a current reality that we must address. Recently, my wife and I went to a plaza that was owned by the Indian community. And the whole plaza was businesses from that community, from the beauty parlor to the restaurants to the grocery stores. And so we were just commenting, having been in this land for over 300 years, it would seem that we would have plazas like that in our own community, which
all
speaks
over
to the economic exploitation and oppression and its impact upon us, not to mention the health consequences of food deserts.
I hear you. Sister Lorraine, what are you seeing in Atlanta in terms of the impact and the earth is mourning?
I really try to grow again vegetables, corn. Everything is dry. It's the dirt is so it's not everything was just spoiled, just like he said, not producing anything. Everything is not growing this season because of this dryness and this heat. So I'm seeing what he has said. about the earth, it's not revived to grow anything this year for me. That's what I'm seeing.
Yes, the soil has been depleted as the people have been depleted in many ways, or
Yes.
exploited, and
Yes.
just wrung out.
Yes.
You're about to say something, Mwalimu?
Yes, I literally, because of the heat wave and trying to save the little vegetables that I've been trying to grow, I woke up this morning, 7 o'clock this morning, to go outside to water my vegetables. And but then also I had to deal with the reality of the water itself that comes from the faucet is not the best water to use.
Yeah.
We don't drink the water, but so you're dealing with contaminations on more than one level that affects the whole ecosystem.
Yes.
Yes.
This concept of the land this morning is not an abstract thing. We see it in our daily lives. Here in Denver, I have used my window air conditioner more than ever, and I have an eye toward what that bill is going to look like. I'm concerned, very concerned, actually. And I saw a news story today on NPR somewhere, not today, but this week, where more people are killed by heat incidents than are by tornadoes and hurricanes and all the others combined. However, we do not see the destruction. Houses are not ripped from the ground when someone drops to their death from heat stroke. It's measured very differently, has a very different visual experience. So we don't actually recognize that heat is a greater danger than hurricanes or tornadoes or earthquakes. But we're seeing an earth in crisis right now. What part of our theology, the theology Reverend Dr. Jawanza Kundufu, the Reverend Dr. Jawanza spoke of, would apply to the times we're in? How did he apply that? What did you see, Brother Mwalimu Olatunji?
As I mentioned earlier, I think everything was on point and well researched and specifically relevant to the issues that we're dealing with in terms of the environment, and his ability to connect that to capitalist exploitation and oppression. Yes. Is so very, very important, because sometimes we just look at capitalism based on the political ramifications and not really tie it to land and water, seas becoming a commodity, so that in the capitalist expression, they literally want to own everything, the land, the water, the seas, and how that has a very detrimental impact on human civilization. Let me mention something I also recently heard in the news, that in Japan,
yes,
that's a capitalist economy as well, they were releasing nuclear waste
in the water.
Yes, into the waters, and the Chinese were very upset because they share the same water system in that in ecological environment, and so they were saying, now if you release this toxic waste into the Pacific, and I would say, watch out. Next week, you'll find that fish coming from the Pacific will be on sale. And if you are not aware of this relationship, you just say, hey, let's go out and buy, some fish from the Pacific, not being aware of this toxic contamination of those waters.
Yes. Ms. Lorraine, you are echoing the concern around what's happening in Japan and the waters from the Fukushima meltdown.
Yes, because that was our speaker's point, that everything is affected. It's not just us, it's the fish in the sea, the birds in the air. And he was right on point with that. If you don't respect the land and respect the water, then how are we to even try to grow our is our time going to be wasted trying to grow in this toxic environment?
Yes, I hear you. And the pouring of the waters, the contaminated water, the radioactive water into the Pacific will not stay even in that local space shared between Japan and China.
Thank you.
It will show up on the West Coast very soon and all over the place. We have no idea what the impact will be. And yet nuclear scientists at the United Nations and other places are saying,
allowing it.
Yes, and giving it sanction.
Yes.
Yes, yes. As we wrap up here, can we think in terms about the indigenous knowledge that Reverend Dr. Jawanza spoke of? What indigenous knowledge can we apply in our current environment, in our current situation, even our local situation? What indigenous knowledge? When he refers to indigenous knowledge, what might your experience suggest that means, Ms. Lorraine?
I think I'm going to continue to try to grow homegrown products and see if at some point, with a little bit of experience and maybe help from a class that will teach me how to harvest my seeds properly, and maybe not depend on the box stores and the genetically engineered seeds, and try to go back to that part of our indigenous heritage.
Yes, Mwalimu Olatunji, when we think of indigenous knowledge, what comes to mind for you?
Well, one of the realities is that Africa historically has fed the world. Africa is the foundation of agricultural development. And even when we moved into a period where we no longer controlled our own natural resources, Africa continued to feed the world, the Greek world, the Roman world. Most of actually what is grown today feed European appetites. But for sure, we have to get back to the foundation, connection to Mother Nature that we once were the caretakers of. And starting out by what we already discussed, just trying to grow something
nice
around where you live to get those skills back, to go through that experimental process that our sister was talking about, so you know what to do and what not to do, and then create co-ops where we share this knowledge and skill together and begin to own land where we are to not only feed our families, but feed our communities. That's for sure. And Beulah land is a major step in that direction. What we have now in Abbeville, South Carolina, is only one of a number of farms we envision in the Pan-African world. And so we're learning the necessary skills and development of the land to be a model again for other communities nationally and internationally.
I love that. I love that. Here in Denver, I think one thing I'm going to do is join I am a high school teacher. We just moved into a new building, and there is a Denver Urban Garden site on the school ground that hasn't been used in years. I am going to join with the coordinator of that project to grow something as a part of the Denver Urban Gardens. In Denver, the Denver Urban Garden is a nonprofit co-op. It's the largest system of urban farms in the country, where people can be assigned plots to grow food or grow flowers even, and for whatever they might use them for. So I'm gonna cast down my bucket where I am and begin to grow something. Even as our seasons change, something will grow. I want to thank you, Mwalimu Olatunji, for being a panelist today and joining the discussion. I want to thank you, Sister Lorraine Harry, thank you so much for joining the discussion and your contribution and reflection. Please join us again, whether you're a panelist or a viewer, next week at this on the same bat channel. Just click the link that takes us to what was the coffee hour, and you will find this opportunity to watch and enjoy and make comments. Do like the program, and thank you so much. Be well.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Good day, everyone.
Oh,
Sister Lorraine.
Yes, sir.
oh, good. You turned off your
Um,
camera.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think we're offline now, right?
Yes, right?
I just wanted to thank you, Queen.
Hold on 1 second.